Hello and welcome to Shift from Burley and Wharfdale Methodist Church. As we draw to a close our series Dare to Dream, we're this week looking at a compassionate, kinder life. What do you think it means to be compassionate? What does being kind look like, or sound like, or feel like to you? If you're watching this as a family, perhaps the different generations will have vastly different thoughts. Why not discuss these later? But for now, let's hear what Jan and Caryb have to say about compassion and kindness.
I wonder, when did you last do something kind? Maybe you rang a friend or relative who was feeling lonely, took some items to a local food bank, or made a cup of tea for someone, or simply smiled at a stranger. Little things can make such a difference to the well-being of those around us, and so much kindness and compassion has been shown throughout this dreadful pandemic by thousands of individuals and organisations. But can we really dare to dream that the new world we're all gradually emerging into could really be a kinder, more compassionate place? A place not purely driven by economics and greed and the haves and have-nots, but one where the needs and aspirations of everybody are supported and upheld by everybody. I think we all know what it feels like when someone is kind to us. It's a really nice feeling, or when we see real compassion being shown. But I wonder what really is the difference between those two particular things. I think kindness is the act of trying to help others who are actually in need or despair, whereas compassion is being able to actually feel for somebody or experience the same amount of suffering that they're actually going through, and then, of course, to act on it. It sounds simple, even simplistic maybe, but think about how often we lose our tempers. We judge others, or we criticise. I know I'm often guilty of that myself. Starting each day with the intention to be kind to others is an incredibly powerful way to live. Not only does it positively affect everybody around us, but you yourself may benefit most. People who are more compassionate and kind often end up being happier and healthier than others, and they may even live longer. I'll take that. But before we can be kind to other people, we do actually need to be kind to ourselves. What we do, we model for the world. If you're someone who takes care of yourself, who speaks up for yourself, but you still know your own limits, you encourage other people to do the same. When we have self-compassion, in other words, the ability to treat yourself as a friend, we become more resilient, I think. We have better relationships, and I'm sure we're happier. Did you actually know that there is an annual Random Acts of Kindness Day? It was on February the 17th, and you may already have taken part this year, but if not, it's never too late to join. So just search on the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation on the web. But sometimes it can all seem a bit overwhelming, especially when we may have been juggling a busy job during this pandemic while we've been trying to homeschool children. And we want to help, but perhaps we feel we lack the courage, energy, expertise that many other people seem to have. And we see frontline NHS workers on packed COVID wards on the television, or volunteers working tirelessly in food banks, aid workers supporting refugees and asylum seekers. And we can often end up feeling inadequate, or maybe just indifferent. And that's totally understandable. So what little things can we do, just little things in our own small way, to have an impact? If we think about the word compassion as an acrostic, here are 10 simple little ideas which cost absolutely nothing. C, for challenge yourself to smile more. Smile at your neighbour, the postman, or the checkout worker at the supermarket. I bet they'll smile back. O, for open the door for someone. Think about the last time someone held a door open for you. Was it in a shop when your hands were full with shopping bags? Was it as you were going in or out of school? No matter where it took place, the chances are you were grateful to the person who held the door for you. M, for motivate others, with an encouraging word. Positivity can really help to lift someone's spirits. P, for practice acts of kindness. You might take your neighbour's wheelie bin out or send a handwritten letter. The possibilities are endless. A, for allocate time to stay in touch with friends and family. Life's too short to be busy all the time. We all have a tendency to get caught up in the daily hustle and bustle of getting to school, going to work, getting homework done, and trying to catch up on jobs around the house. We need to set aside time to catch up with family and friends. S, for share a skill or interest. Do you have a particular skill you could share with a friend or neighbour, such as gardening, knitting or crochet? I would love it, for instance, if someone could teach me how to use a drill. S, for share a hug or handshake. Social distancing has made this impossible over the last year, but hopefully we can return to sharing a hug or handshake before too long. The power of touch can be a simple way to show compassion. I, for incorporate the phrase thank you into your daily routine. Manners matter. We can try to use the words thank you much more often. Gratitude is something that should never be left unspoken. O, for offer to help someone with their to-do list. To-do lists often seem to be endless. However, as the saying goes, many hands make light work. And finally, N, for nurture relationships by taking time to listen to others. Sometimes the easiest way to build a relationship can be done simply by listening. God gave us one mouth and 2 ears for a reason. So, being kind and compassionate needn't be onerous or expensive, but compassion can go much deeper, and many of us have a cause we support, an issue or a plight that we feel really strongly about. Ask yourself this question: what upsets you most when you watch the news? Where do you see injustice that really makes you sad or even angry? I have a real passion for 2 things. I hate the idea of anyone being lonely, so I act as a befriender for my local Good Neighbours organisation in Ilkley. I also love music and singing, so I use my enthusiasm for that to lead a local singing group for people with dementia. And while I hope it helps our lovely members, I also get a huge amount of joy and fulfilment from the sessions that we have. We can also try to expand our own worldview and go beyond the influence of our own family and social circles. But that can be difficult when most of us just exist in our own sort of tiny little universe. But if we can make a conscious effort to learn about and understand other cultures, other ethnicities and religions, then we begin to see life through other people's eyes. To walk a mile in someone else's shoes, as the saying goes. We're now going to hear from Karen as she shares some of her thoughts on kindness and compassion.
Thanks, Jan. Choosing how to show kindness and compassion towards somebody you know well, like a family member or a friend, or even a neighbor who you see often, is normally reasonably easy to do, as you have a connection with that person. Even if they're years older or younger or of a different gender, you most often have some common ground. And it's possible to assume that the way that you can show kindness to them is the same way in which you would like to receive it. It's that much harder when the person comes from a very different background, where differences in language, culture, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or even just style have us showing unconscious bias. The media doesn't help, as it just affirms unproven generalizations that we have about one another. Almost 2 years ago, I emigrated to the UK with my husband Scott and our children, Luke and Robin. Whilst our kids are known as born frees in South Africa, both Scott and I grew up in the midst of apartheid. That said, we were lucky enough to be born on the right side of the colour divide. Many families had children who grew up harbouring the same prejudices of their parents without the knowledge or the understanding of the reasons. Both our families were strongly anti-apartheid, and we were encouraged to stand up against prejudice. Righting the wrongs of so many years of oppression takes compassionate acts of kindness beyond measure. And despite ploughing both hours of effort and funds into many charitable programs and projects, we often got it very, very wrong. We would throw Christmas parties for destitute children, spoiling them with sweets and fun games for a day, and then send them home to their shanty houses to attend school without school shoes or a hot meal in their bellies. We would rally volunteers and use corporate funding to implement large-scale vegetable tunnels, posing proudly for team photos at the end of the day in front to prove our labour of love, only to return a month later and realise that the community have no easy access to water to keep their spinach seedlings alive. When we step in wanting to help through acts of kindness, we need to ensure that our compassion incorporates both understanding and acceptance. We need to listen and to learn about the real need without judgment so that our acts really hit the mark. Perhaps not in the way that we would most like to give them, but in the way that they will make the most difference to the person or people receiving them.
So how does all this fit in with my belief as a Christian? Is compassion a form of love? Well, compassion doesn't necessarily require love to exist, but it's often thought of as a form of love. I suppose a love for humankind as a whole. Now, there are dozens of references to compassion in the Bible, and as Christians, we believe that Jesus was the actual sort of embodiment of love, compassion and forgiveness. There's a book in the Bible called Ephesians, and in there it says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you." And Peter, who was one of Jesus' disciples, tells us to be like-minded, sympathetic, to love one another and be compassionate and humble. To lead with compassion also means to show mercy to others. Now that can be really difficult when we feel as though we've been wronged over something, whether it's a major crime against us or something as small as perhaps the rudeness of a stranger. But we can learn to be more forgiving. Forgiveness shows love to people in our lives, and importantly, it also releases us from the burden of carrying resentment. So, can we dare to dream about a more compassionate, kinder world? I think we can, because let's remember, kindness starts with one.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never fading. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior, the hope of nations.
I do hope that Jan and Caryb's words have given you food for thought and helped you to think about the small kindnesses you can display day in and day out. Our next shift will premiere on Sunday, the 4th of April, Easter Sunday, which is a very special day for all Christians, and we have a very special shift for you. Until then, remember, every journey starts with a single step. I pray that each one of you can journey through life in a compassionate, kinder way, step by step, one act of kindness at a time.